Don Carpenter on News Talk 1270 KIML.
News Talk 1270 KIML, Don Carpenter Show. And I'm not sure if we still have Liz Cheney or not. I know we had to call during the break, and I think we might have lost her. We'll have somebody else on the line, though. Let's give this a shot. News Talk 1270, you're on the air.
Hey, Don, you've still got me.
Oh, okay. A different number popped up. I didn't recognize.
My cell phone. I figured it was safer that way.
Oh, okay. I apologize for keeping you waiting during the break. I tried to take the break as close to the bottom of the hour as I could.
Oh, no problem. It's always great to be with you.
Oh, well, thanks for joining us again. And it's always good hearing from you. How's the campaign coming along?
It's going great. We're very excited. We just released our first ad. That'll be on the air today. It's called Generations, and people can see it on my Facebook page and on YouTube, and really just talks about my family, talks about my family today, Phil and the kids and me, and it also talks about my roots in Wyoming and, going back to the Mormon Trail. So we had a lot of fun putting it together. The kids had a great time helping to make the ad, and we're very proud of it. So that's going up today, and we've been down in Cheyenne most of the week this week and headed over to Laramie, and we're just having a wonderful reception, folks all across the state at events, wanting to sign on, wanting to help, totally frustrated with what's happening in Washington, and I think really having the sense that there's a way we can really make a difference in this election cycle, and joining the campaign in order to do that. So it's been wonderful.
Well, since you mentioned Washington, and I know last week you were criticizing Senator Enzi and how he handled the Obamacare when it originally passed, and he was on TV a few times last week. Talking about how he predicted a lot of these things, but I guess you were saying that he really didn't do enough when the bill was originally presented?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of things that are important for folks to remember, Don. One of them is that Senator Enzi was a member of the Gang of Six, and that was back in 2009. He was one of three Republicans, only three, willing to negotiate over Obamacare. And so it's basically like the president and his allies, they walked into a conference room up on Capitol Hill and essentially said to, the six senators there, listen, we're going to impose this massive new federal program on people all across Wyoming, all across America. We're going to essentially take over a sixth of the healthcare system, a sixth of the economy, the entire healthcare system. And Mike Enzi's answer was, okay, we can negotiate over that. My answer would have been, not just no, but hell no. We are not going to negotiate over that. That's a perfect example of where a Wyoming senator has to know when to draw the line. And you certainly do everything you can to negotiate and to compromise for the good of the nation, but you've got to stop when your values are at risk, when your freedoms are at risk, and absolutely Obamacare was an instance where both of those things were certainly the case. And then, you fast forward to a couple of weeks ago, Senator Enzi trying to take credit for having predicted that people would lose their insurance, and having gone on the Senate floor and made a speech about it, and basically he's saying, I told people this would happen. And, my view of that is that we're not electing somebody to go back there and be a weatherman. We're not electing somebody to make predictions. If you knew 3 years ago that people were going to lose their insurance, what did you do? And what did you do effectively? What did you do? What steps did Senator Enzi take to prevent a single person in Wyoming from losing their insurance under Obamacare? And the answer is he was not able to produce any results. He wasn't able to do anything effectively to protect the people of Wyoming. We've got now over 3,000 people who've lost their insurance, while all of our senators and congressmen still continue to get a special deal where they get to use our money as the subsidy for them to buy into the exchanges. So the system is completely broken, and as you watch the train wreck that's being imposed on us right now with Obamacare, it's just one more piece of evidence that we need new folks back there badly.
Now, and I hate to play into hypotheticals, but if you were in that situation and you were in the Senate at that time in 2009, 2010, What do you think you could have done differently?
I think if the Republicans had stood together, what happened was the president had this massive new program, which was clearly going to be devastating, and he was able to say that it was bipartisan. Having Mike Enzi and others sit in that room and negotiate gave the president cover, so he could tell this story to the American people, saying, look, this wasn't a partisan effort. I've got Republicans with me. I got Mike Enzi with me. How partisan could this be? But so it basically gave the president running room and allowed him to develop his plan, to design his plan, allowed him to pretend there was a process underway that was actually taking into account suggestions from Republicans. It protected him. And I think that if every single Republican instead had stood against Obamacare from the very beginning, from day one, had said, absolutely not. We are not going to allow you to destroy the best of our healthcare system. We're not going to allow you to impose this mess on the American people. Then we probably wouldn't be where we are today. But those months of time and running room that Senator Enzi and the other two Republicans gave this president enabled him and allowed him to put in place this program, which we're all feeling the pain of today.
Well, and I mean, we just saw the news today. It's not exactly very popular in Wyoming, that's for sure. I mean, only 80 people signing up, and I'm sure some of that's due to the website, but it's obviously not going to be successful anywhere, but especially here.
No, that's right. And we, as I said, we've had 3,000 people at least lose their insurance. They can't get onto the exchange. They can't get new insurance. Our premiums here in Wyoming are higher than in any other state. And, in the meantime, we're not seeing any relief at all come out of the United States Senate. Nationally, it's just incredible that, only 26,000 people or, some number in that vicinity have been able to sign up on the federal exchanges. And I tell you what I worry about is the president will use this mess as an excuse to say we're just going to go to a single-payer system, that it'd be much easier for folks if we just provide everybody with insurance. Not going to have to sign up. Just don't worry about that. And we know that's been his intent all along. That he said that many, many times, that he believes we ought to have universal care, single payer. And so I think we've got to be very, very vigilant in this period right now that we don't see fixes being proposed by the White House that move us in that even more dangerous direction.
Now, do you think that that all of this chaos, maybe not the website, but all the other chaos involved with this? I mean, people being dropped and there's all kinds of confusion. I mean, do you think this was all planned from the beginning?
No, I think they really screwed up. I think that what it tells you is the government cannot undertake this kind of an effort, and that the government is simply not constituted, not able to engage in this massive scope of trying to get everybody, handling everybody's insurance. And so I don't believe they planned for the failure of the exchanges, but I think the level of incompetence is unbelievable. Somebody pointed out the other day that, in the amount of time that they've had to set up an exchange, which has completely failed, the United States mobilized for, deployed, and won World War II. So, there's significant incompetence going on here. Not to mention the fact that we know that people's information that they've entered into the exchanges isn't secured. They haven't put in place the kind of protections that people need, so their identities aren't stolen, so their information's not stolen. Across the board, it's a mess. Obviously, Kathleen Sebelius ought to be fired. If the president was serious about fixing it, he would already have said, all right, look, I'm not going to force people off their insurance. We're going to change the law so that doesn't happen. I'm going to get a new Health and Human Services secretary. But ultimately, there's no fix for it because the system itself is, the kind of endeavor the government simply can't do well.
Well, yeah, I think most people here would agree with you. Now, one of the questions I've had is a lot of people, especially a lot of the Senate, they keep talking about maybe just pushing off the individual mandate for a year. I mean, do you think that would be acceptable, or are you all for full repeal, nothing else but full repeal?
I think at this point we really have to be for full repeal. I think that before we saw this train wreck, you might have made the case, look, let's push off the individual mandate. Let's use that time to educate people about how bad this law is going to be. I think that, the Obama administration's done a pretty good job at educating people how bad the law is by trying to implement the law. And I think, right now we really need to be pushing. Ultimately, we can't salvage any of Obamacare. It's not feasible. There are too many bad things in this law. Provisions, for example, that say doctors are going to get reimbursed based on the outcome of their treatment. And the effect of that will be doctors won't take on the elderly. They won't take on people who are really sick. They won't take on high-risk patients. It's a way of rationing hidden in the law. And there are a number of provisions like that that are just completely, unethical, immoral, unacceptable, dangerous. The whole thing's got to be scrapped. And I hope the Republicans are smart enough to use this moment to push for that and to begin to put in place a series of reforms that really will help improve the healthcare system.
Now, and you mentioned some of the reforms that might help. I mean, what do you think would be a better alternative? Because I think one of the arguments that the left always makes is that the Republicans never present an alternative. And of course, that's not necessarily true. But I mean, what do you think would be a good alternative to this?
I think that we have to have a healthcare system that puts patients in charge, that respects the relationship between patients and doctors, a system that really enables people to cut costs and to control costs. And some of the ways that you can do that, for example, are through tort reform. Medical liability insurance drives doctors out of business every single day. And we need tort reform that, frankly, will allow doctors to continue to practice and not have to worry about ruinous lawsuits. Secondly, I really believe that people should be able to buy insurance across state lines. I think that when you force insurance companies to compete for clients, then you're going to get a much better menu of insurance coverage. And I think, again, solutions that really put people in the driver's seat, solutions that take advantage of the market. I think that people ought to be able to have health savings accounts. They ought to get tax benefits for doing that. I think that we need to look for ways to reduce administrative costs. Anybody who's been in a hospital recently or had a relative in a hospital recently, you get that bill, and the prices for the stuff on that bill, they bear no relation to any reality at all. They get jacked way up. Doctors don't get paid enough in a lot of instances. There could be much cost savings, for example, if hospitals were more effectively negotiating with medical suppliers. I think we've got to, frankly, look at the extent to which today money that comes from a lot of the industries that benefit from Obamacare is involved in our politics. And in this instance, I think, you got to look directly at Senator Enzi's own fundraising. He gets 82% of his money from Washington, D.C. special interest lobbyists, from groups that have business in front of his committees. And if you go through his FEC report, you'll see a lot of that money is coming from these medical companies, from the pharmaceutical companies, from the insurance industry, from companies who have an interest in healthcare reform that is not always consistent with the interests of the people of Wyoming. And one of the big surprises for me so far in this race has been that Senator Enzi is number one in that regard, that he gets a larger proportion of his campaign money, and has for the last 4 years, from Washington, D.C. special interest groups than any other sitting senator today, Democrat or Republican. I think that's a big part of the problem with our system and with Washington today.
Well, I didn't know that. Now, since you mentioned some of the political stuff, I wanted to ask you about this. And when I first saw these numbers, it didn't seem kosher to me. But a poll was released yesterday. It showed Senator Enzi up by 52 points, and it just that doesn't really jive. And again, right. I'm not a pollster, and I can only go by what I've heard from people that I've talked to and people call my show. It seems like it would be a little bit closer than that. Do you want to address this poll?
Yeah, thanks, Don. I appreciate it. I mean, look, this is first of all, people should know this poll was conducted by a polling group that showed that down in Texas, Dave Dewhurst was beating Ted Cruz 51-16, just several weeks before Cruz won that race by 14 points. So the track record of that polling firm is very poor. They've got a poor track record in races here in Wyoming, too. But the other thing that people ought to know is this poll was funded by the same scurrilous, out-of-state group of friends of Mike Enzi's that are running the ads on gay marriage all over the state. So they ran those ads which lie about my position, and then they went out and commissioned this pollster who's got a track record of getting it wrong, and then they've suddenly got this poll. What people ought to know is the ads they're running are false, and the poll is false as well. But from my perspective, it's sad. It's really sad to see somebody like Senator Enzi, who has such a long record of public service, so desperate to cling to power right now that he's allowing his supporters to really run a gutter campaign. The ad, that's gutter politics. This poll is gutter politics. The desperate attacks that you're seeing, that stuff shouldn't go on. And Senator Enzi has many times promised the people of Wyoming that he won't condone this kind of politics, that he won't stand for it. And he really ought to now stand up and say, look, this is beneath the dignity of the office of the United States Senate. It's beneath the dignity of the people of Wyoming. And he ought to renounce it. He ought to tell his supporters to stop it. But frankly, I think it reminds the people of Wyoming they deserve better in terms of this campaign, and they deserve a better senator.
Well, he's always more than welcome to call in and refute that. We only have a couple minutes left. I mean, do you have any upcoming campaign events that you'd like to let everybody know about?
Well, we're all over the state. You can check on our Facebook page to see when we'll be up in Gillette next. I always love to get to Gillette. It's a terrific place. I think one of the issues I care deeply about and that I'm going to fight for back in Washington is our coal industry. Nobody's been fighting hard enough for our coal industry. We're going to lose the war on coal if we don't start to fight back. And I believe, Wyoming senator has got to be known nationally as a leader, somebody who is going to make sure that we mobilize people all over the country to save coal. And right now, the president is at war with us on this issue, and we got to get ourselves in this game and start fighting back. It's really important that we're looking for export markets for our coal, but we got to fight the war right here at home and make sure that we're able to continue to build coal-fired power plants and that we're able to continue to enjoy the benefits, the tremendous benefits we get as a state and a nation from the coal industry. And that's a big part of my campaign, a big part of why I'm running. And so I'm always pleased to get up there into the coal capital of the whole world there in Gillette.
Oh well, yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that. It's we were just talking before you called in about the oil and gas boom that's happening in North Dakota, and that's mainly because none of that is federal land, and that's one of the things that's always been a little bit of a sticking point up here. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. No,
you're right. I mean, right now the big focus of this administration and the EPA is coal. They don't like any fossil fuels, and they're going to go after natural gas, and they already are with the anti-fracking movement. They're going to go after oil, and the potential that we're losing. If you think about Wyoming could be on the cutting edge of helping our nation become energy independent if we could get access to the resources that we have here. But your point, Don's exactly right. We've had a 70% reduction in drilling permits on federal lands in the Rocky Mountains under this president, and that's exactly the kind of thing that's got to get turned around, and it's going to require a new senator. It's going to require new leadership in Washington, new dedication to really taking on these battles and winning them.
Well, absolutely, and I guess I'll let you go. I'm sure you're quite busy, and hopefully we'll get to see you in studio sometime. Next time you're up here, by all means, feel free to stop by.
I will. I'll do that for sure. I'll definitely take you up on it, and I appreciate the opportunity to chat with you and all the listeners up there in Gillette this morning. So thanks so much.
Anytime. It's always an open forum here for you.
All right. Thanks, Don.
Hey, thanks a lot. There you go. That's Liz Cheney, and we're out of time for the hour. We're going to take our top of the hour break. We'll come back, and I believe we're going to have Julie Simon from the Chamber of Commerce in studio right after this.
For the latest on the show, follow Don on Twitter @TheDonCarpenter. News Talk 1270 KIML.